Yes.
I just want to mention we'll take a couple more questions before we break for dessert. Go ahead.
Assuming that Israel is going to have to attack Iran in order to destroy their nuclear capability, are there actions on the domestic Israeli front that you foresee that would need to be achieved at this point to show their potential seriousness in this direction, perhaps whether it has to do with strengthening certain activities on the Lebanese or Syrian borders, or tit-for-tat reactions to rockets landing in Sderot and in southern Israel? Are there things of that nature that might show some sort of seriousness that would somehow change this equation?
Look, you know, the problem is that if Israel were in a position to take the kind of initiative it ought to be taking, it should have long ago obliterated Hezbollah's weapons stores and Hamas's. I mean, if we want to prevent Syria's, if we want to prevent a massive attack, then we should be attacking preemptively. The problem is, and that is the way to preserve the most life. It is for the good guys to take the initiative, not to allow the bad guys to take the initiative and control the battle space. Unfortunately, the problem is that the political climate that we're dealing with today is so hostile to Israel on every single level that that we send to our great, I think, humiliation, our naval commandos onto a terror ship with paintball guns. You know, and as a mother of a son, I tell you what, you know, when he goes into the Army, he's sent into battle with a paintball gun, the Chief of Staff is going to have to worry about a threat from me. Because you just don't do that. I don't think you do that. But the problem is that we have become so cowed by this sort of delegitimization of the right of Israel to defend itself that we have, in a way, contributed to our own imperiling. And that, to me, is a very disturbing thing as an Israeli, because you know, these are our lives that we're talking about. We're talking about our lives, and that should come first, I think, for any country. If you truly care about the lives of others, you show it by, first of all, safeguarding your own. So, yes?
I hate to sound political, but I'm going to do.
Oh, I'm not political at all.
Under the present administration,
Yeah.
who ran for change,
We're getting change.
that's exactly what I was going to say. Are we happy with the change?
How's that hopey-changey stuff coming for you?
Right. And if we're not happy with the change, what do we do about it?
Right.
How do we do about it? Somebody recently called for impeachment. That ain't going to happen.
I think that what you do is you stand up for your own interests and you stop worrying about the interests of other people. I think that you stop dealing with irrelevant issues and you start dealing with relevant issues. You stop thinking that the thing that you should be voting on is whether you're for or against partial birth abortions, or whether, you know, what are these other things, you know, homosexual marriage. These are not issues that should be dominating the attention of America's Jewish community today. I do not think that these are the issues that should be of paramount importance to anybody, regardless of how they fall on these issues. Unfortunately, we've seen over time that this kind of dementia that has taken over the American media discourse has also taken over the American Jewish communal discourse, and it is a very big problem. It is a very, very big problem. And you know, what should you do? Let's be political about it. Well, again, my first and really only rule in politics and interpersonal relations and whatever is be good to your friends and bad to your enemies, because then people will want to be your friends and they won't want to be your enemies. You should support the people who support you, and you should oppose the people who oppose you, and it is simple as that.
We'll give the last question to our honoree, Sheldon.
In the last month we were in Israel, the lot has been talked about the potential of making a deal with Hamas for the release of Gilad Shalit. I think I read somewhere that's what you need leadership for, and it's a tough decision. As a father who had a son in the IDF, and certainly when we were in Israel, most of our friends have either children currently in the IDF or have been in the IDF, and certainly want their son. And I think everybody, even that opposes any deal, says this is still my son. And I don't think there's anybody in Israel that doesn't want to see him released. But when they're talking about 1,000 or 1,100 terrorists, I think that the price sounds very high. And is there anything out there that you know of? I mean, you're not going to give us anything that's secret, but tomorrow says it. But what's your feel from as a reporter as to what are these deals? And
we've seen that. First of all, Prime Minister Netanyahu gave a speech where he said that the price was too high, that there is such a thing as price being too high. And I think, we have to recognize a couple of things, and one of them is that we are being extorted, we are being blackmailed. And as Sheikh Yassin, the founder of Hamas, and I actually think he shouldn't be called a sheikh because he really was just a murderer in a wheelchair, but he as he said, he triumphantly declared that they will destroy the Jews because the Jews sanctify life and they sanctify death. So I think that, the fact that we're having this discussion in Israel, that this is not the first time that we've had it, we've had it repeatedly, and we've come down, I think, on the wrong side of the issue repeatedly, specifically since 2000, but even before that, in 1985 with the Jibril deal and in other instances. We had it right in the 1970s when we said we don't negotiate with terrorists. And unfortunately, in recent times, we haven't stopped negotiating with terrorists, and as a consequence, we've become weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. And we see our domestic discourse in Israel dominated by this kind of defeatism. And not only defeatism, but also derangement, where the life of one soldier who is supposed to be protecting the country is put in front and made more important than the lives of thousands of other people whose lives are in the balance. And the only difference between Gilad Shalit and 1,000 other Israelis is that we know his name already and we don't know theirs, but they will die if we do this deal. And we have to have a responsibility for those who have not yet been killed, and we have to have responsibility to those who have not yet been kidnapped. When we think about this, and our whole discourse on Gilad Shalit is misplaced. We call him a POW. He is not. He is a hostage. He is being held hostage. He is being held incommunicado by a terrorist organization in Gaza, and has been for 4 years. And we have to recognize who it is that we're dealing with, and not act as though when we hear Mahmoud al-Zahar or one of these other murderers on television saying, well, Israel just isn't showing enough flexibility, that, first of all, what is this man doing in my television? Why am I listening to anything that he has to say, and why is he still alive? These are the questions that we should be asking ourselves, because all the other questions that we ask ourselves about this situation only embolden them both to continue to keep Gilad Shalit in captivity and to move on and attack and kill more and more and more of us. The problem is that, in the media environment that we live in today, where what sells is, one picture or one thing, and it's all immediate gratification, instant gratification, and you want to get that headline that's screaming and dramatic. What ends up ensuing is not a reasoned debate about current affairs, but rather who can show you more blood and guts, who can pull your heartstrings more effectively, and that kind of environment that dictates our discourse is really devastating for national morale and for national rationality. And again, I say all these things not as somebody who, God forbid, thinks that Gilad Shalit should remain in captivity, but when I hear Gabi Ashkenazi, the chief of staff of the IDF, saying that we should make the deal, I really wonder about this man. I mean, he sent the entire army into Gaza in December of 2008, and he came out without Gilad Shalit, and I just wonder, how does he dare show his face in public, let alone to claim about what we should be doing about a soldier that he failed to rescue? So, you know, it's a very, very problematic situation. But to end on an optimistic note, I think that, you know, I know that the Israeli people are an extremely strong people and resilient people, and we understand what stands in the balance, which is why I think a lot of Israeli leftists even are so disturbed by Barack Obama and why his approval ratings among Israeli Jews is so low. It's because we fundamentally understand in Israel that the responsibility of Israel is to ensure the survival and the prosperity of the Jewish people. And we will do what we have to. We will do what it takes in order to ensure that that does, in fact, come about, that the Jewish people survive. We did not establish the State of Israel. We didn't build it. We don't live in it. We don't pay huge taxes to it in order to watch it destroyed. And we're not going to go gently into that good night. And I don't think that the Jewish people in the diaspora should go gently into that good night either. And I think that you can trust the Israeli people to stand up when all other options have been exhausted, and I would expect that you'll stand with us, and that's how we're going to continue on to the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Please stay for dessert, a beautiful dessert in the back. A Marav service right here in the sanctuary at 9 o'clock. Thank you, Carolyn. Time-wise, okay? I know we went a little bit late, but yes. So let me know. Are you going to stay around here?
I have to go to the bathroom.
Okay. So, okay, sure. Check the weather before you do this. Do you want to get one picture here?